The new Puppet Master mod just dropped on Friday Night Funkin', and this mod was created by TheMaskedChris, and I believe it's basically to celebrate the anniversary of two of his mods, one being Starlight Mayhem and the other one being the verse of the Eteled mod. In this video, I want to give you the quick backstory behind the mod, and then I also want to go over each of the characters and give you a little bit of their backstories as well. Now, while we don't know everything thus far, because I believe this mod is meant to set up extensions to the Starlight Mayhem mod and also the Eteled mod, meaning that we're going to get an update in the coming future. We do know that in this mod, apparently these characters are being controlled by some shadowy figure, which is why the mod is called Puppet Master. Now, I assume that the shadowy figure is supposed to be the shadow version of TheMaskedChris that we see in the beginning of the mod, but as the mod continues to upgrade and progress, we may see a different shadow figure or a different Puppet Master come to be. And something that I find funny in the mod is that even though these characters are supposed to be controlled, they all seem pretty chill, even Austin and Eteled to some degree. But with that being said, now let's get into the backstories of each of these characters, starting out with CJ, of course. Now, CJ's full name is actually Carl Johnson, and he's 20 years old. CJ is also the lead vocalist of his band and kind of like the leader in general. Even though, funny enough, he's admitted that he's probably not the best vocalist. I think that's probably Ruby. But since Ruby has some issues and insecurity, she kind of takes a step down and CJ just kind of fills that role, I believe. And since we're speaking about Ruby, I think originally a lot of people thought that CJ and Ruby were actually dating, but in this mod we'll actually get to see CJ's girlfriend. She actually goes by the name Vade. A couple of fun facts about CJ include that initially he was supposed to be a My Hero Academia original character, and his superhero name was going to be called the Ink Punisher. But of course that idea ended up being scrapped, and now we have the CJ that we see today. Now, I don't think we've gotten to see her yet, but apparently CJ has a twin sister named Faith, or aka FJ. And something else that I found kind of interesting is that even though CJ kind of comes off a little scatterbrained, he's actually kind of smart. Apparently in school, he's pretty much a straight A student, and he gets those grades without really even trying at all. The next person that we're going to talk about is Ruby, and as I said before, she's kind of like the right-hand woman to CJ. She's 19 years old, and her personality comes off as very reserved, kind of shy, very timid, and when you know her backstory, it kind of makes sense as to why she behaves like that. Basically, Ruby was heavily and severely abused by her parents, and I don't mean that they just kind of slapped her around or didn't feed her anything. I mean, they really hurt her to the point to where they actually took out one of her eyes in one of their fits of rage. This is why she wears that hairstyle that basically covers up one half of her face. Is because she basically is missing that eye. She also always wears that sweater or some type of long sleeves because her parents used to leave marks on her bodies with sharp objects and left her with a ton of scars. Luckily for her though, she was able to run away at 16. She had finally managed to get her actual driver's license, so she was out of the house as soon as she could be. She basically knew that she needed to get out of her parents' house, so she saved up a bunch of money and rented a car and just drove all night. And she ended up meeting up with a guy that she met online, who later on became her boyfriend, and luckily he actually really loved her and it wasn't a scam, because that could have turned out to be very bad for her. The guy that she met is named Mark, and they're actually still together today. And not only was Mark a good choice, but his parents were also very good people because they took Ruby in and really helped her survive. And even though Ruby is able to live a normal life now, she still has those memories of her parents, which keep her kind of stagnant, keep her from moving on, but she's doing her best to kind of get over that trauma. A fun fact here is that Mark is also the reason that Ruby was able to meet CJ. When she moved in with Mark, she actually started to go to the same high school as him. And this high school just happened to be the high school that CJ went to. And all of them actually ended up becoming friends, and after high school they moved in together. One day, CJ heard Ruby singing in her room and realized how beautiful of a voice she had, and that's when he basically dragged her into joining the band. And that's where we are with their story so far. The next character that we actually see in this mod is going to be Vade, and she's supposed to be CJ's girlfriend. Now, she's supposed to be 19 years old, and she's not in CJ's band even though she wants to be, but apparently she has no musical talent at all, which is why she's not in the band, obviously. Something else that I find interesting is that in the original Starlight Mayhem mod, when you look at CJ's background, he talks about his girlfriend being perverted, but he also states that he kind of likes it. And now that we actually get to see some information about his girlfriend, she's described as being a very dominant type. And she also describes herself as being super perverted, so while we don't know what they get into, we can probably assume that it's something freaky. And a fun fact, apparently she loves to cook and one day hopes to be basically like a professional chef. The next character that we're going to talk about is named Eteled, and he's the main antagonist and kind of the protagonist of the creepypasta series called We Deleted You. And this series was created originally by Icy Pie, and it was later adapted by TheMaskedChris and turned into this whole like movie in a way. I think it's like 3 hours plus. So if you really want to get into the weeds of it, you can watch the whole thing on his channel. Now originally, Eteled was basically just a regular human dude that worked for Nintendo, but an accident with a Wii caused his human body to basically be unalived. Now the crazy thing here is that his soul was actually transferred into the Wii. And to be more specific, his soul got transferred into the me that he created. And this is actually how we got the character Eteled, which if you look at it backwards actually spells deleted, which makes sense now. And as we're playing through the mod, you actually see that Eteled goes through these different stages, and apparently it's because he's under immense pain from actually getting deleted. But the pain isn't the only thing he feels. Apparently being deleted also caused him to start to lose his mind, which explains why he looks like a maniac half the time. Apparently before he was unalived, he was only 29 years old, meaning that he was actually fairly young. So I guess realistically, if I was to lose my life that young, I would probably be pretty mad or insane as well. The next character that we see in the mod is Austin, and he's the main antagonist of the sequel to We Deleted You. I believe this story is known as Sam's story, and his backstory is actually pretty interesting. When he was a human, he actually held the belief that he was entitled to the world's beauty and no one else was allowed to destroy it except him. This basically led people to believe that he was some type of psycho, and of course this led his parents to repeatedly take him to the therapist to make sure everything was okay in his head. Now Austin was a smart kid and he recognized that his ideas were freaking people out, so he got more interested in actual video game creation. He did this because he knew that he could build his own world and have control over that and nobody would think that it was super weird. He was pretty good at this because he was even able to get on at Nintendo, and more importantly he was able to shine there at Nintendo, being one of their best game creators. Now this happened around the same time that Henry, or aka Eteled, was there. Obviously he was Henry before Eteled. And since Henry saw that Austin was doing so well, he actually ended up unaliving him because he was starting to be more successful. Now, just like what happened to Henry's, Austin's spirit didn't just disappear or go to heaven. It actually ended up being resurrected inside a computer. Now, something I find interesting is that originally, Austin wasn't some type of evil spirit. He was actually helping the people at the Nintendo Corporation make their games better in his new ghost form. But it seems that Austin started to change once Henry was unalived and became Eteled. It seems that Eteled was able to basically transform Austin into this type of corrupted version of himself, and also dragged him into the Wii as well. And this is obviously one of the main reasons that Austin and Eteled are like mortal enemies. Now, sadly, I don't know how old Austin was when he lost his life, but I'm assuming that he was probably younger than Henry, which makes his death even more sad in my opinion. The next two characters that we see here are going to be Kiwi Bird and Austin, and that's not to be confused with the Austin that we were just talking about. This Austin is actually a self-insert and it's supposed to be like the persona of one of the people on the dev team called PhyPsi. And I'm assuming that Austin is supposed to be like some type of dog because there was obviously dog ears right there and just looking at how he presents. But if I'm being honest, I'm not really sure. All we do know for sure about the character though is that Austin is transgender, obviously female to male. Kiwi Bird is another self-insert, and I believe he's in charge of actually making the trailers for all the TheMaskedChris mods that come out. And I think just like PhyPsi, he's probably like friends with TheMaskedChris in real life. And the last character that we see in this mod, of course, is TheMaskedChris himself. And it seems like he has two different forms here. He has his regular form, of course, which is just him with the mask on. And I don't know if it's intentional or not, but the mask really reminds me of that mask from Tokyo Ghoul. And of course, the second form that he takes on is PhantomChris, and this is basically where his skin turns jet black. And as of right now, we don't know if this actually has significance to the mod or for something in the future, because of course we know there's going to be some updates to his mods coming in the future, so maybe this will play a part later on. And there's also just a reality that it could just be a self-insert just like his two buddies did. If you enjoyed this video, check out this video where I go over the new Herobrine mod, or check out this video where I go over the new Wednesday Infidelity mod. Subscribe today to become a member of the Orseofkorse. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow with another one. Peace, peace.